Hi, my name is He Who Is in the Water. Going to be playing another league of WB Pestilence in Pauper. And I've been working on this deck since the bans, and there's been some interesting problems that have come up with it. I think the list is really not set in stone, and I'm trying out a lot of different things here, so I'm going to be talking through that. And I've had some success with this, I'll say. I did 5-0 with pretty much exactly this list, minus one land difference. But that league was not entirely representative of the strength of those changes because it was all good matchups anyway, regardless of these changes. But at least it feels that I did not mess too much with the core of the deck. So what kind of changes am I talking about? The one that came to mind most for me was in the removal. Chainer's Edict has been pretty underwhelming for me versus Affinity in particular. Eating a Stray Frogmite and then losing to Gear Seeker Serpent, gaining Unblockable, has been a pattern that comes up pretty frequently with that. And with Blood Fountain from Affinity, it's been really hard to manage all of their threats, even with a Pestilence in play. It just costs them so little resources to rebuy those creatures, and you're losing a lot of life in the process of wiping them away with Pestilence, even with a Guardian in play, that it's not the most tenable. So I'm opting for more spot removal in Journey to Nowhere over Chainer's Edict. There are some consequences to that. The Boggles matchup becomes significantly worse. We do have ways of using Pestilence to try and whittle down some of their creatures and maybe race them, but in the main deck, this is going to be really hard versus Boggles game 1. Surprisingly, not that bad versus Heroic because we are getting 4 copies of Journey to Nowhere, so Heroic struggles to deal with that card. So there is some give there. It's not just that all of those kind of creature Voltron decks become worse matchups. We do gain points there by comparison, but Boggles is still probably the variant that would run into more, and that this is going to be significantly worse versus that. And the other places that Chainer's Edict comes up that we're missing are opposing Guardian of the Guild packs. We now have no way to interact with them in the main board. Perhaps that's a reason to try Unmake over maybe like the 4th copy of Journey to Nowhere, but I want to try and keep the curve low for the most part, since I'm generally not as worried about opposing Guardian of the Guild packs. Those are largely be in mirror matches, which are tough to plan for anyway and very rare with Pestilence. You may see them in white-black control, which is a strange matchup to begin with anyway, but again, not one that I'm really interested in targeting at this time. And Boros Monarch and Boros Bully frequently have 1 to 2 copies of Guardian of the Guild pack, and that one's going to hurt the most. That one's pretty problematic to not have any answers to, but I think the Bully matchup is strong enough anyway that I'm okay letting a little bit go there for the time being to see how Journey to Nowhere goes. Another change I've made is I've removed all copies of Prismatic Strands from the main deck in favor of Suffocating Fumes. Again, this is with the interest of improving the Affinity matchup, where Prismatic Strands, when Atog was in the format, you at least had this hope to include 1 or 2 strands in your deck that if they go for Atog, they have to respect it. They can't just go all in, and that respect can buy you time to develop out in other ways. But without Atog and Krark-Clan Grunt not really being a significant problem, I think we can try moving all strands to the sideboard, as a lot of these fair decks, particularly Fairies and Boros Bully and other Boros variants, have really dominated the metagame. There are not as many linear decks that strands is powerful against. Certainly finds ways to be relevant in a vast majority of games across the format. That's part of the strength of the card, is just how versatile it is. But I think I'm going to try Suffocating Fumes as a way that is good versus Affinity, in that it can hit Disciple of the Vault and Glaze Fiend when those cards are relevant, but it can also cycle away when you're not facing down those cards and you need to find more specific threats. And Fumes is also like an interesting card in Pestilence because it buys you time to get to the Pestilence, but it's not a card that you have to clutch and hold on to make sure you get value out of it. That's something that you can run into with like Blue-Black Delver and Blue-Black Fairies, where you've got Suffocating Fumes, and say you're playing versus Boros Bully, and they have a Parapet or something in play, and you need to deal with all of those tokens at some point, but the Fumes isn't doing anything for you right now, but you don't have ways to recur it, so it's like you get into these awkward parts with it. That's a big part of why Bully feasts on those kinds of decks. But with Pestilence, you do get to pretty freely cycle it or hold it up, and you have a lot more versatility in that. If you lose access to it, you're not like out of that effect for your deck, but it is more efficient than Pestilence, and with Fairies being still the predominant deck of the format right now, I think I'm okay main decking it and see how that goes. Because I have found that Strands has been dead in my hand in a lot of matchups. There's a lot of linear and other mid-range decks out there that it really does not do a whole lot against. Defenders and Blue-White Familiars are the decks that come to mind, which are already horrendous matchups for this deck, but that's where Strands is just absolutely meaningless to the game state. It's like pretty hard to get around that. So going to try moving a little bit away from that with those cards. And the last new addition in the main deck here is Priest of Ancient Lore. So the two cuts that I made for this was the Golden Egg and the 4th Guardian of the Guild Pact. I think in the previous iterations of this deck where I was playing Golden Egg over Priest, I think that was a mistake. I think Priest is significantly better than Golden Egg and fills a similar value permanent role while also getting on board. And I think I want... Guardian of the Guild Pact has been underwhelming to me, but also like pretty difficult to cut because of how vital it is to your game plan in a variety of ways. Also, cutting Chainer's Edict means that you need to be doing more blocking of small creatures, and Guardian of the Guild Pact is unparalleled at that. But versus Affinity and some of the other slow mid-range decks of the format that are going over the top, I found that Guardian has been a little bit underpowered in some circumstances. So I'm trying to trim one copy, not sold on that, but that's what the second Priest of Ancient Lore is. And Priest it's a tough card to evaluate in some ways, similar to Suffocating Fumes, because both of those cards are never going to be that bad. So I'm trying to stick with these cards for a little bit because in theory they appeal to me and I think they do have some good use at this time, but it's also going to be hard to notice when these cards are very bad because they're going to be cycling and drawing cards. So need to be cognizant of what kind of hands are too slow as a result of those cards not being more powerful, like Prismatic Strands or Guardian of the Guild Pact. But I haven't totally moved away from Prismatic Strands and that 4th Guardian, as you can see it up in the sideboard here. The sideboard, I'm still trying to explore a lot of different options. The metagame is very wide right now, and I've tried to have that be reflected in the sideboard, where Strands is great against a lot of things. Castigate is really the go-to card versus the combo decks right now, which I think are pretty terrible matchups. Specifically, Cycle Storm and Pinger Storm are going to be really hard to work through, and I think Castigate is the best option that we have available for that. So I don't like discard in the main deck for the most part with this deck, and I've certainly tried a little bits and pieces of it here, but largely I think it's something you really want to stay away from. 1 to 3 copies can be acceptable, but you never want to be playing 4 Castigate or 4 Duress or 4 Divest. It's just too divergent of a game plan where you are putting a lot of removal spells in your deck and a lot of hard interact creatures in your deck and playing Pestilence because you want to control the board. And then these discard spells try to convince you that you're trying to attack the hand as well as the board, and it's just not that feasible to do all of that, particularly with how the draw engines in Pauper have improved over time, that you're just not really going to be able to keep up in ways that matter, and you really just want to focus on managing the board. And if your opponent's playing a deck that does not care about the board, Pestilence just isn't a great deck, and it just kind of comes with the territory, and you gotta handle those bad matchups and just say, hey, I can't beat everything. The Oblivion Ring I've just added as another catch-all. I'm really not certain what I want there, but I think I want, with how I'm imagining mapping this sideboard, I think I want to bring in a little bit more removal that's good versus Blood Fountain, and Oblivion Ring is going to fill that role for now, in addition to just being a good card to bring in when I need to bring some cards out of my deck, and just pretty versatile, although it is slow. And think that largely covers my thoughts on this iteration. Oh, I did add an additional plains for a swamp to make up for the fact that we are playing Journey to Nowhere now, which is a card that you want to have a little bit more early white mana for. Not sure if we'll stick with that because taking out a swamp has pretty serious ramifications when you're casting Pestilence, but Journey to Nowhere is also a card that is good versus the big creatures that you need to be wiping, so we may not have, the 6th swamp or 6th black source in play to kill a Gear Seeker Serpent, but we'll have a faster time casting Journey to Nowhere to kill that same Serpent. So there's a trade-off there. I'm not entirely sure how that'll shake out, but we're going to give it a go. So this is the deck. We're going to play a league, and I'll see you in match 1. Here we are for round number 1 versus Out Zero. Believe they've been playing a lot of fairies lately, and this hand is fantastic versus fairies. So we are definitely weak to the turn 2 ninja here, but we have such incredible inevitability in this matchup that turn 2 ninja is not as bad as it is from like blue-red. And we do have Journey to Nowhere, so that's a great pickup here. So if they go for a turn 2 ninja, we can interact with that and then have a ton of land drops to make to buy time. So no play from them. I think we'll just play the Crossroads. Pass the turn. They don't appear to have the ninja. I think they would have gone for it there. So then the next thing to be cognizant of is trying to be secure from turn 4 Monarch. And I think we're just going to need to run the spare supplies in so that we can force action on a Guardian of the Guild Pack to not be as weak there. Okay, they just play the swamp here. I will happily Journey to Nowhere away this Fairy Seer. The 2 CMC sorcery cards are going to be really challenging to resolve, so any window that I have for them is going to be great. I do struggle versus Monarchy here if they are able to kill Guardian of the Guild Pact with like an Agony Warp or Chainer's Edict, but barring that, we're in a pretty great spot. So I think they're pretty clearly representing Counterspell. So I think I just want to spare supplies and draw here, because I think if they... Okay, well now I'm just gonna play Skyfisher. The sequence I was thinking of before I drew Skyfisher was that I want to have next turn, if they are choked on blue mana, I can go Guardian plus Omen of the Dead and not be afraid of Spellstutter Sprite. And that would be a really great sequence. This brainstorm is really going to determine the course of this game. If this is a good brainstorm, then they're able to keep playing. But if not, we just have too much going on in our hand there here that they're going to struggle to play through. Okay, this is going to be great for us. We get to resolve both Guardian and Omen back the Skyfisher. They didn't reveal a Chainer's Edict there, and they had the... I don't know if they had the option to. But let's see if this Skyfisher resolves. It does, okay. I think I have enough to do with my mana here at instant speed that I do not wish to play the tap land, because I'm okay cracking spare supplies here. The Snuff Out is fine. That's why I didn't want to attack with Guardian, is that blocking this Augur has tremendous value, and we have the inevitability pretty well wrapped up. Skyfisher's another great draw, but I just really want to start taxing all their counterspells. It's the only card that gets them out of this right here, so the fewer of those they have, the better. And now I can go Plains, Omen of the Dead. If they have Spell Stutter Sprite, we get to cast down it and just continue to run away with this game. So Chainer's Edict into Ninja, I think, is the only way they really get back into this game. Yeah, Thorn's not going to do it. Nope, nope, nope. And while we do have these Skyfishers, we'll just take the time to resolve Pestilence right now. And they have conceded from the game. Alright. So, sideboarding. Pretty easy. One of the things with changing or putting the strands in the sideboard is that we're even a little more pre-boarded for this matchup with the Fumes, even though this matchup is already incredible. So, things just get even better. But I'm looking to bring in the fourth Guardian and two more circles, or two circles. I don't have any yet. I don't think we want the Oblivion Rings. Stormbound Geist is a potentially challenging card that they can present to us post-board, but I'm not so worried about it that I need Oblivion Ring in addition to Journey to Nowhere. And Journey to Nowhere is weak because... do I even want to get away from that for what I was talking about before with struggling to play those kinds of spells at sorcery speed? My favorite thing to do in this matchup is just board out of Thraben Inspector. Thraben Inspector is awful. It only blocks Augur. All of the other ground attackers that they present get through it. It's easily spell stutter sprited. The window for it to be good is very small. So I think I'm just going to take 3 Thraben Inspectors out and bring in these. So a consequence of bringing Thraben Inspector out is we do want to be looking for 7-card hands that have way more lands. We just want to be hitting land drops naturally. And this hand in particular does a really good job of that. It's like 1 value permanent and a Orzhov Basilica away from being perfect, but it's still very strong. No threat of turn 2 ninja is great for us. Just going to keep developing out our lands here. Circle of Protection blue is a great draw here. So now we just get to force the action on a counterspell. They have Annul or Spell Pierce, that's okay too, but... Alright, the circle is in place, so now we just want land drops more than anything. So it's important here not to circle the Spell Stutter Sprite, because if they just ninjutsu in a ninja, then we're in bad shape. So Monarch here is necessary for them to stay alive, but now we get to put a Pestilence in play, and we've got 2 problematic enchantments that they're just going to struggle to deal with. And we can cycle the Fumes away here. Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, I don't know what I want to do here. I think I just want to get a Skyfisher into play. Force them to have some removal. Second Sprite is no good here because of the Pestilence activations. And just pick up a Crossroads. play the Scoured Barrens because having black mana is more important than the extra life right now. And we'll certainly have time to get to that in the future. This is fine. That's part of why blue-black fairies is such a better matchup for us than blue-red fairies is the life total differential is just completely different. If they snuff out once, we're ahead on life versus blue-red can potentially have 3 lightning bolts in their hand at like turn 11. And that's just a world of difference. We're always going to be ahead on life until a Gurmag Angler comes into play, and we're really good at playing Magic until Gurmag Angler hits. I think we'll just get the Crossroads into play here, probably cycle the Suffocating Fumes. But important not to use all of our mana preemptively because the circle is keeping us safe from ninjas that they were trying to sneak into play. But excellent. Also, a cool tension of this game here is it's hard for them to remove their own thorns to kill Pestilence, so they really only have cast down to do that. Or Agony Warp if they have that, or Chainer's Edict targeting themselves, but these are not really plays that they want to be making. Especially since the circle is just buying us a lot of time anyway. They just have so much pressure in this matchup. There's 4 counter spells in their deck and about 16 spells in our deck that demand counterspell. And we just make a lot of exchanges like this, and then we get to, turn 12-ish, and they have their last counterspell, and they're trying to win the game with that, and they just don't have the resources. I expect this will not resolve, but yeah, so all that stress on their counter magic, it just puts them in a really weird spot where they can't sideboard that much, but they struggle to answer enchantments, so they kind of need to get some Echoing Truths or Spell Pierces or Nulls, but it's hard to just find room for all of that. So it looks like they have an Angler here, which I will attempt to Journey to Nowhere as just another difficult enchantment for them to interact with. I'll cycle that on the main phase, I believe. I do have an interest in journeying the Angler. We did have the option there to just Pestilence for 5, but I think we're in a good enough spot here. Like, they have to have 3rd counterspell right now for this to really go poorly. And if maybe they, even if they have like an end of turn echoing truth here to bounce this journey, they're still in fine shape. We take like a hit for 6 and then we bounce back. Yeah, that's fine. I don't know if I want to kill that because cracking a spare supplies is also something that interests me at this time. Suppose it doesn't hurt to preserve the life total. Make sure you do that before blocks are declared. And I think I'll just activate Pestilence again because I foresee us using all of our mana. Not a whole lot I'm interested in playing at sorcery speed here, so I'm happy to pass the turn with these spare supplies up. If they bounce Journey, I can pest for 5 and kill everything, and then we're back in this game state. So we're at 5 mana right now, or 5 black sources, 6 on this coming turn, so we're pretty close to just pesting them out. So a life gain spell here would be pretty powerful, or just a land. I guess we've already gotten the 2 Kabira Crossroads. So this is like a kind of interesting spot. So they're at 13. It can deal 5 right now. Untap deal 6. Puts them to 11, so I guess that's not really worth it at all, and that's not particularly interesting. So we're just gonna crack a clue. Or it's spare supplies, but it's a clue. Thin to win, I guess. We do want the untapped black, so no reason not to do it. So they know our hand is 2 lands, but I don't think the contents of our hands are super relevant to their decisions at this time. Woman of the Dead. Interesting. Well, I think since we have double swamp here, this first omen is just totally fine to play. Can't be sprited. And we'll just... I don't know what I want. Probably just Skyfisher, honestly. Well, I guess that's worse if they have spot removal. Yeah, I'll just get Guardian. I think this cuts off the Pestilence for lethal line this turn, but... No, we can do 5 into 8, so no, it does not. Actually. Because we hit double Ash Barrens there, which is pretty funny that ended up being that relevant. Sure. Relic is very bad versus us. We do have targets, like don't get me wrong, we play 2 Omen of the Dead, 2 Custody Squire, but that is just largely not what the games are about. So pest for 1 here. Take 2, go to 14 or 13. And then it's 13 to 12, and then I just pest for 12 times. This is bad versus the card Gut Shot, but I've already been ruined by Gut Shot once this week. It can't happen twice. And they know about this swamp, so it's probably not too surprising. Alright, good games. And that's round 1. We'll see you for round 2. We're here for round number 2 versus RHV. I believe I've played versus this person lately, but I can't recall anything in particular. This is a tough hand. I think I can do better. There's no castables. Only a few land drops. Like, if we get a 6-card hand that has Orzhov Basilica land, it's better than this entirely, so... Yep. This is easy mulligan to 5 now. Alright, this hand's good. Gonna put back Fumes. And I think the Skyfisher, honestly. I don't know. I think I'm going to put back the removal spell. And just try to generate material and value and hope that that can pull us back into this game and that we don't need. Like, if this is Defender, it'd be awful right now. Faithless Looting, okay. This is acceptable. Probably Boros Bully. I think I bought him a Suffocating Fumes in this hand, didn't I? Yeah. Yep. Oh, well. I mean, I think that's just pretty clearly the card you bought him in the dark, but such is life. I feel like flashing back looting is a pretty good thing for me here. That means we get to put the Skyfisher into play and they can't go like bolt, end of turn bolt into Monarch, which would be the worst case scenario. Hitting a 4th land is really good there too, so now Pestilence is a good thing to draw. I will trade my Lone Missionary off with the Sacred Cat. Unflinching. He knows what his mission is. I don't think I'm going to have that option now, but... Our Skyfisher's unlikely to live, but I do want to make them spend the bolt to do it. I don't think the 2 matters to them matters as much as the possibility that they don't have a removal spell of Lightning Bolt, Journey to Nowhere, or Rally the Peasants, because I'm blocking. 100% if they're attacking, I'm blocking. Oh? Perhaps? Perhaps. Okay. God, Pestilence off the top here would be so sick. So unbelievably sick. Even though they have the 2 strands, like, just, we can get through it. This is still fine, though. Try to get a cheeky little attack in here. nice. Feel like they should just never block there, but it also doesn't. I don't know. That's not a huge deal. So this matchup is kind of neutral, where like in game one, if we don't have prismatic strands, we have suffocating fumes. It's kind of about the same. And by about the same, I mean still like really good. Do they have mismatching Squad Hawks? They do. Interesting. I respect it. So their hand is Lan, Hawk, 2 unknowns. Alright, suffocating fumes right now. Suffocating fumes. Best I can do is Lone Missionary. I don't think playing the Missionary is worth too much here. We'll still gain the 4 life next turn. It's just if they have like Rally, this cast down matters more. Cast down is 5 life, plus the tap land is 6 life, as opposed to the 4 life from the Lone Missionary. Although I guess it's 5 versus 4 because I get a tap land in either instance. But I don't think I just want to like cast down a token randomly because Seeker of the Way is still a problematic draw, or if there's something else in the mix there. Thraben Inspector is perfect. And I will gladly offer up this trade if they are so inclined. Probably makes sense because it's like the token's never getting through on the ground, so. And if I draw another Custodian Squire, they figure I have targets for that as well, so. Just hoping to draw a sweeper. It was not a good way to tap. Don't think it matters, but still was not good. Don't think the attack accomplishes much of anything there, but that's pretty bad here. Really, 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 really need a sweeper. Okay, that's the foil one. I'm loving these attacks, though. This is, like, not enough people do this. Is this cast down worth it over the next couple of... I just don't think it is. The fact that they're attacking like that makes me think they don't have Rally in hand. Obviously, they can draw it at any point, but I think it's still probably better just to Skyfisher here. Important to pick up the tapped spare supply so that we still have the option to cash in the other one. Okay, so there's the Pestilence. So the Pestilence, that actually informs our play here. If we didn't draw the Pestilence, I would play the Plains so that we can cast down and activate spare supplies, but we have the Pestilence now. So the game's over if we get to our next turn. So with that in mind, we play Scoured Barrens instead and cast down. And I'm attacking with nothing because they have 2 ground creatures that I want to block with my 2 ground creatures. Also conveniently representing Prismatic Strands, if that's a card that they're concerned about, but probably from their perspective at this point, they're just going for it regardless. At 22, we can block 4 creatures, kill a 5th, so 1 rally is not good enough. So if they flashback looting here, nope, we're dead. That's unfortunate. That is unfortunate. Good news is that we're dead by such a wide margin that like cast downing at an earlier point there doesn't really change the outcome of this game. We still take 35 damage, and that cast down would have saved like at most like 6 life. That's alright. So Strands and Oblivion Rings are what I am interested in here. What am I not interested in? I don't want Journey to Nowhere. Cast Down fills enough of that role, and Oblivion Ring I'm interested in for like dealing with Lumith Redfields or something of that nature, if it comes into play, in addition to like doing all the things that Journey to Nowhere does. Although maybe I can just board out 2 Cast Down as well, because I think if I recall correctly, the Sacred Cat in Cathar, or not Cathar. Oh, the Disturb creature for Midnight Hunt. Veteran Lunarch? Lunarch Veteran? That one. If they're playing that, I don't think Seeker of the Way is traditionally in those. So maybe I just don't really need these cast downs much at all. And then also just trim a Lone Missionary for a Guardian. Yep, I like that. Spot removal is just not good versus their deck. You need to be playing to the board. Sounds great. Needs a few lands, but we'll get there. Got a lot of ways to spend the 2 mana that we do have. Although this Ash Barrens is a little awkward. But let the record show that Evolving Wilds would be better than Ash Barrens, I think, in this particular hand at this stage. Evolving Wilds versus Ash Barrens is like a pretty... If you want to like a rabbit hole that makes you go crazy, it's like trying to think of all of the different ways that they do things differently. On the whole, I like Ash Barrens more, but like it's hard. Like I fetch planes here? It sounds kind of awful. But then do I just like play Spare Supplies? I don't know. I think I just get Swamp and suck it up for 1 turn. They didn't have a turn 1 Inspector, so like the blocking that this does is not as relevant. And just having our color online to cast Pestilence, especially when we have an additional planes in the deck, I think is going to be pretty crucial. Nice. So I definitely play Inspector. Do I want to play Spare Supplies next or activate the Clue token? And I think it's active or cast Spare Supplies because we've got these strands that makes us want to use our mana at instant speed. So maybe I should have played Spare Supplies pre-combat in case I draw a tap land, but not punished for that slight missequence. Thrilling Discovery. Curious. Okay. This is a non-foil. Okay, so they have this in hand still. Now things get a little more awkward. Yep. Alright, we're probably dead this game, but that happens. Play a mid-range mirror, you miss a land drop. That's, you know, that's life. And with Custody Squire in the deck, if we get to my turn, or if we get to my turn, on my turn, I'm not dying this turn. Things aren't that bad. I quit my complaining a little bit. I will sacrifice one of the spare supplies so that later on Custody Squire can have a target if we so desire. Although there is an interesting thought to, like, do we play Skyfisher and replay a basic land and try to cantrip that way so that we lose the ability to play a land this turn, but then we get a blocker in play? I think we might do that just because the window for that being good is going to be really small. And like getting a blocker in play, like if they want to remove it this turn, it's still like somewhat inconveniencing them to do so. So I think I want that. They do have this. Oh, they got both rallies in the graveyard. That's a shame. Battle Screech. Oh, Palace Sentinels. Oh, okay. Okay, we can play this game. We can play this game. I want to do this. Oh, they had a Strands in there from a while ago. Okay, this is still fine though. The Skyfisher is going to be pretty good additional pressure here, although I am still confident that we're going to lose this game. We are not, 100% on that. Lunarch Veteran, that's the name. Yes, I knew that the whole time. I'm definitely not reading it off screen. That's a tough card though, because like it's a soldier, or I guess cleric, but like looks like somebody who serves in the military from Innistrad, which I'm just mentally shorthanding to Cathar all the time. Springleaf Drum and Boros, my goodness. Forcing the chump here is still great. If they don't want to chump, that's okay too, but just resources being expended. So if they have like a Battle Screech here, things get challenging because we can't just like play Strands and be good to go. But if they don't deploy a ton of flyers, then we can get Guardian into play, and then that's able to contest the Monarchy really effectively while we hold up Strands. I don't know how many Flaring Pains they'll have. That's a tough one to figure out, but we're gonna find out. Hopefully it's 0, because that card's pretty bad. Oh, they do have a Screech in the graveyard. Oh, they just discarded that to this last Faithless Looting, so there's a lot of game actions happening on their turn. So they have 2 rallies in their graveyard. That means if I attack with Core Skyfisher, I take 20 in the air. And a little chump on the ground. Is that something I want to do? I don't think it is, so I think I'm not attacking with Skyfisher. But I am going to play the Guardian here to try to contest this Monarchy. Because the monarchy is going to be really helpful to us if we can stay alive on these turns with strands to not, or to help us hit our land drops and develop towards a pestilence. This is great for us. Because they played last game very cognizant of prismatic strands, so for them not to go for the double rally here and put us to like 6 or something like that when I'm completely tapped out is good. So they have their own strands that they can represent here, but oh, this is a close game. Another suffocating fumes here would also be incredibly dirty. That's a huge Bajuka Bog. Wow. 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 Hitting both rallies just takes so much of their threatening or their threat away. Okay. I don't even want to do anything here. Just draw. Technically, I could end up caring about this Luminous Phantom trigger in the future if I'm like in a racing spot trying to activate Pestilence, but not really where this game is at right now. So it looks like they're going to be leaving up strands of their own to fight over this monarchy. Cool. So I'm okay like drawing a lot here and discarding a lot because many of our cards are not going to matter. Wow. Okay. So I think I'm going to sequence my lands this way so I can deploy another Core Skyfisher. I guess pick up Lone Missionary because that gets some life gain on the way back. I'm surprised we got the Monarchy back there. I'm going to be honest with you. Okay, I'm just going to discard Omen of the Dead and one of these Basilicas. So I want the second Skyfisher in play so that... Oh. Well, I think this is as good a time as any to spend my Prismatic Strands. Because I've just got so many of them, and I want to be blocking here, so... Okay, they don't have the Flaring Pain. So the question here is, yeah, so if they attack like this, I think I just I block and take the 1. I'm not that worried about it. Without double rally, it takes a lot of resources for them to kill me from this life total. I just don't think they have it. And that feels like a really inefficient use of resources to kill me. I could also try to deck them, but I feel like we don't need to do that, and that's unnecessarily risky, but it is close. And God, I love decking people with the Monarchy. Especially Boros opponents, never gets old. Still attack with this one. They didn't send with their ground creatures last turn, which was confusing to me. I think like the 3 bird attack is reasonable, but these Lone Arc veterans, I don't know. I think I want to cast 1 spare supplies. Cool. There's the Pestilence. If I go Swamp Pestilence, I've got 2 activations up. Is that better than waiting another turn? They've used all 4 Faithless Lootings. They didn't have Flaring Pain last turn. I feel like if I just go Lone Missionary here and then hold up Strands in this cast down, I feel like I can get myself in a better position next turn. Because I think if they Pestilence, or if they activate or cast their Prismatic Strands when I have a Pestilence on the stack, I think they could maybe chain it together. And I don't think from here they can chain it together as easily. Okay, great. So them playing Thraben Inspector here suggests that they don't have Rally and activate Rally this turn. So with that in mind, I think we're pretty much locked now. But I do want to give them the Monarchy back, because at this time I think the Monarchy is probably the fastest way to kill them if we just wipe the board. And just want to preserve Strands, because that's like, if there's any tomfoolery that happens post-Pestilence, I wish to have those for that. So we still know about this mountain from like 2 turns ago. Alright, it's the moment of truth. The moment of truth. Hello. This is a card Pestilence. It's an enchantment from Urza's. Hey, okay. We did it. That was a pretty sweet game. This whole match has been good so far. But coming back from like missing our 4th land drop to that was really nice. That Bajuka Bog, though. Oh my god. That Bajuka Bog that took out Faithless Looting and 2 rallies that they had binned early that were just like so much ambient pressure on that game. That was absurd. That's such a good rip. Oh my god. So it did kind of confirm that Seeker of the Way is not in their deck. And I feel we've got an appropriate amount of removal here, because we do have cards like Palace Sentinels that we would like to remove. I guess the Oblivion Ring didn't really see any targets, but still kind of okay leaving that in. The card that I would be looking at to bring back in is another Lone Missionary, just to be life gain, but I think I'll do that over Cast Down. Pretty minor adjustment. But, you know, trade with half a Sacred Cat, gain 4 life is still, like, something that we want at some point. This is a hand that plays Magic, but doesn't have land drops, and it doesn't have the super impactful cards in the matchup. We've got no Pestilence, no Suffocating Fumes, no Prismatic Strands. I think we can do better on 6. This hand just... I think we can do better. Yes, okay. Oh, now... Oh, we're talking. Oh, this is great. Oh, we're gaming. Look at that. Discipline mulliganing. Okay, we're in this. Listen, in Pauper, you gotta get excited about these little things. It's not... We don't have, like, these turn 1 kills that you get excited about your deck doing. We got these, like, clean mulligan decisions in a mid-range mirror that I'm already heavily favored in. That's what there is to get excited about in Pauper. If you love that, you know, welcome to the format. Hope you enjoy it. If that sounds painful to you, I'm sorry. You may want to just go watch Modern or something. Early turns are pretty scripted here. Developing out our lands, gain a little bit of extra life. We're in a good position where if they like deploy some small creatures here and go for turn 4 Screech, we can Fumes that pretty readily. I didn't see a Ramosian Rally, so if we get to that point, I think we're just like good to go. Well, Springleaf Drum has text here. It's not really good text, but it's there. I think my hand, or they're playing in a way that suggests they're going to Battle Screech this coming turn, so I think I just want a Suffocating Fumes. It is a little bit less mana efficient here, but if we just get to eat all of this, it's so much value. Oh my. That was... Whew. That was a lot. I am going to just Pestilence now, wipe these away, try to keep them under locks as much as I can. Do it in my end step, play around Gut Shot, because I guess I just do that now. But if you play Pestilence, do make sure you utilize your own end step. A lot of really important ways to utilize the activated ability. Like, this is fine. This is fine. Like, we have the backup Pestilence. We've got card draw artifacts in play. We can develop out here. This is fine. If it was Bolt into Palace Sentinels, then, you know, things get a little hairier, but this is all okay. Great. We even got Guardian to tie the room together. Thraben Inspector was a great draw. It just really makes that turn trivial as opposed to like slightly interesting if we want to trade the Pestilence off for all that. I think we would trade the Pestilence off for all of that, but again, we're just in a good spot here where now we've got another clue token in play. If they remove Inspector, we just put Guardian into play and start clocking them in a different way. And if they don't have removal, game's kind of over, because then we get to do the Guardian. Fun times. And now with the Squadron Hawk, all of that doesn't even matter. Yeah. Alright, we got this. Yeah, we didn't like need the Bajuka Bog, but you know, it's still good. That was nice. This was a brutal game 3. It was absolutely brutal. All right, good games, opponent. We're 2-0. See you for round 3. Round number 3, we are versus 8-6. I haven't played against this player in, this has got to be years. Years. I think they play a lot of blue-black Delver is what I recall. And some other mid-range decks. You can generally tell that a Zedra the Great-Hearted avatar likes to play mid-range or fair decks. It's I think it bears out pretty well on that one. A couple unkeepable hands here though. Down to 5. I do have 4-card hands that look better than this. We do. So I think we probably go to 4. We don't cast anything in our hand. We're pretty far away from casting the things that we want, and it's not even that cohesive a plan. We do have more white sources in this deck than I typically play, but part of the thing is like when you have Orzhov Basilica in your deck, you just mulligan a lot better. I think I'm going to go to 4. Alright, so we're just going to keep all of the card advantage that we can. And we'll make it work. Probably dead this game, but such is life. Alright, Volatile Fjord. So definitely bearing out on the prediction there of blue cards. Okay, drawing another land is excellent. If they counterspell this priest, we might be in trouble, but otherwise we're really not looking that terrible. I think since we have the cast down, I'm just going to choose to activate Spare Supplies. And because we have this priest, I don't think we even lose a whole lot by not activating on the main phase and looking for comes into play tapped land. I think we're actually like pretty okay if we draw the comes into play tapped land this coming turn cycle. And the second priest is somewhat awkward with X. We could have resolved this one by now. Or not by now, because we just had to find it there, but... Land? Okay. We've got powerful cards for them. My main concern now is, are they fairies or are they blue-red Serpentine Curve? If they're playing Serpentine Curve, we're in a lot more trouble. But if this is just a very slow... Yeah, this is awesome. Okay, we can do this. We can come back. Okay. Oh, they missed their land drop too. We hit our land drop. We'll see if there's another one that does it for us. Definitely punished for playing 3 planes in this build. Looking a lot worse right now. A lot worse. But we do also see the power of Priest of Ancient Lore. Being able to trade with a ninja here means that they kind of have to spend this lightning bolt, where if this were a Thraben Inspector, they might not feel so inclined. Monarch is brutal, that's for sure. If they play Monarch here, really just need to draw a Guardian of the Guild Pact right here, right now. The game's not necessarily over, but we're in trouble. Guardian? Okay. I've seen worse cards. We do get to kill this Crimson Fleet Commodore, which is great. That's a big part of why. So again, something I touched on before in the Blue-Black Fairies matchup that we played earlier is that I think Blue-Red is a lot scarier to play against. And for the two reasons that we've already seen, Crimson Fleet Commodore has 5 power compared to Thorn of the Black Roses 1, and a Lightning Bolt is really efficient without costing life, like Snuff Out does, and also goes upstairs. But the way that this is played out so far is that we will have a better chance when we get to the late game of not being as threatened by those cards, since we have been lucky enough to not be under immense pressure and draw out of our mulligan to 4. Ninja here would be a little annoying, but they're also starting to run out of removal, so maybe they don't. Okay, Cast Down's a nice draw. I believe they probably have Spellstutter Spray Dispel, but is it worth that? That spare supply is just snap resolved. I don't think they have Sprite. I think they would fight over that when I'm mulliganing so deep, but I guess not. Okay. That does not make sense to me, but I don't think you respect like the second cast down there from their perspective. They also didn't have Ninja last turn, so that makes me feel like I'm not getting Ninja this turn, but the pause indicates that I am. So that turn cycle went as bad as it could have gone, but it's okay. We are in a lot of trouble that they haven't used any counter spells yet. So we're very much at risk of falling too far behind on that front, where they just access their 4 counter spells at any point in these coming turns and we just lose. Interesting. I think we still just play Crossroads here, but we can't run our cast down into the Spellstutter spread that we know is just there. So if they tap lower on cards, we can try to just like throw away this cast down into a counter spell to help ourselves resolve a Pestilence. Now it's really important that we don't play cast down, because if they have double Sprite in hand, they can start spriting our Pestilences, and that's just complete and utter game over. But I believe we are at that game over stage anyway. So we'll just keep throwing these on the stack. Don't think we really have too much of an option at this point. At least I got a counterspell. But unfortunately, we're also taking damage enough where these pestilences aren't really going to be enough to stabilize us. But we'll just fish for a little bit more information, see how they play. I want to cast the pestilences first because if these all get countered, I want to be, and I'm taking damage in the meanwhile, it'll be better to cast Custody Squire at 5 life than casting Pestilence at 5 life. So there's a greater window for these to be good. And we're still putting them on needing counterspell here. But giving them too much time to find everything they need. Vapor Snag. Interesting. Please never play Vapor Snag in blue, red, or blue, black. I've seen Vapor Snag in Snap, and it's not worth it. It's just not. So they do have Sprite for X equals 4, X equals 5, so they can kill these Custody Squires. I'm not going to show them Custody Squire. It's possible they don't know about it in the deck, and maybe that changes a play in the future, but... Okay, so on to sideboarding. So, similar to blue-black, we just really want the 4th Guardian and the 2 Circle of Protections. And these are going to be really great. Thraben Inspector is even worse here, because in blue-black, sometimes you get away with like blocking a Garmag Angler, and that's pretty good value, but here, that never happens. So, blocking a Crimson Flake Commodore does not accomplish anything that you need to be doing. Oblivion Ring is interesting. I do have a slight interest in that because I do really want to get away from the 4th Inspector and this Lone Missionary as well. So Prismatic Strands does have more value in this matchup. Red to stop Lightning Bolt and Scred, in addition to blue to stop combat, is really powerful to access. Maybe, yeah, I'll do those instead of Oblivion Ring. I think Ring's still probably too cute when I've got these 4 Journeys main deck that aren't even necessarily the most powerful. And we'll run it like that. This hand's awkward, but good. Hopefully we can have Omen of the Dead show off why it's so good in these mid-range mirrors. I've heard people describe fairies as a control deck, And I think that can be somewhat helpful to give people an understanding that you are supposed to take a pretty reactive role when you play that deck in the vast majority of matchups. But I think particularly when you're examining this and saying this matchup in particular, if you treat them like a mid-range deck, you're going to be in a lot of trouble because turn 2 Ninja is an incredibly powerful draw that you need to respect, that you need to be playing creatures and dominating the board in the early turns as well as the late turns. So saying that they're a control deck, you start to convince yourself that, oh, Castigate's going to be pretty good, or oh, I can try to play a slower game. And that's just really not the case. Then you say things like, oh, I want more Night's Whispers and things like that. And that's really not what the games are about. Even if we're both like very controlling mid-range decks, and we are, it's just you can't afford to be that slow about things. You need to present a wide variety of threats and draws. Hopefully that made some amount of sense. Because it is tough. Like, if you're coming from, let's say, Modern, there's like blue-white control in that format, I think. You may not look at fairies and say, this is like the control analog blue deck that I'm looking for. And I think it is probably a closer experience for what a player like that might like. But when you're playing the games, it's treating it purely like a control deck, and how you sideboard and evaluate your mulligans is really dangerous. Another white land is really great here. If you want to force spike me, that's okay. I suspect there are light on lands there to have no creatures there, but this is interesting for sure. Lone Missionary can be really good, it can be really bad. It's a card you want to play anyway, because you do need to get your life total high enough. But versus Augur Bolas, it is heinous. Okay. And I will gladly offer the trade if they want to flash in a Spellstutter Sprite here. Pestilence is a nice pickup as always. But we get to play both Skyfishers here if we want to, because I'm presuming this first one's getting countered because of how powerful it is. So then we get to sneak in the second one. And so now they have to ask themselves the question again, do I want to counterspell the Lone Missionary? And you never, ever want to counter the Lone Missionary from their perspective, but the more opportunities you present to them, we're like, hey, this might not be such a bad idea. Eventually you might get them to bite on that, and that's really good. This card is extremely low impact for this game, or this matchup. But you just need some copies to have this card be in your deck. So we're not trying to run our Omen of the Dead into Spellstutter Sprite. They flash in Sprite on end step here. Do I want to Omen in response? I think I do. If they Spell Pierce me or annul, so be it, but that's going to be good versus Pestilence anyway, so we'll just deal with that. It's also not uncommon to have Relic of Progenitus boarded in from their deck, so getting value off of Omen of the Dead is not a sure thing. Priest actually makes this quite a bit easier. Land's not a bad draw. I think I do want to cast the Journey here. It kind of tells me how many of my lone missionaries I can plan on attacking with. They may have an Echoing Truth here, but I still have a Priest to block with. So if it's like Echoing Truth into removal spell, this is bad, but I'm also somewhat interested in trying to tempo them out a little bit with our creatures. So I'm not... It's an interesting spot for sure. Because I think if this Journey gets countered, I just don't think I attack with anything. But putting them on Echoing Truth to like really punish this, I think I'm more okay with. But it looks like they have the Echoing Truth. Nope, nope, okay, oh, this is great. If they just got another ninja here, that ties up a lot of their mana. Which makes it reasonable to get one of our 2 spells here on this coming turn cycle. And if that spell is Pestilence, we're going to be doing pretty good. Because these attacks from our 2 power creatures and all this life gain that we've made has really enabled that to be a powerful line. So they did use 1 counterspell earlier, right? Yeah. And this is also a really great demonstration of Lone Missionary in potentially its worst individual matchup and how much it's still better than Dawnbringer Cleric. And why it's just such the better card on the whole. Okay, so double Sprite here is fine, but it does mean that my attack is no longer great. So I think I'm just going to hold back. We got 6 black sources in play right now, so we do need to find another way to sneak in 2 damage there. But I think we can make that happen. Because now they're stuck in a pickle of trying to get the game over with. They have to kill me with damage. But then they're attacking, and if they're attacking, their creatures aren't blocking Lone Missionaries and Priests, and if I get in 1 attack, then the Pestilence is just easily taking the game over. So with 4 cards in hand, it's a pretty tough spot to figure out what the best course of action is. There are certainly ways. By no means do we have this game locked up, but we played towards a pretty reasonable position right now. Fiery Cannonade would actually be really bad for us here, funnily enough, but, you know, my opponent sideboarded in Fiery Cannonade. I will take that loss. Second Mountain's pretty good for us. That card does not do a whole lot for their deck. Okay. I like it. Well, that just makes it even more complicated, doesn't it? I think we just passed the turn here. There's not really an effective way that we can push damage. I do also want to add the slight addendum that if we had Dawnbringer Clerics here instead of Lone Missionaries, we would be able to Pestilence and wipe the board, but I think that still lose to this Monarchy creature, where they're much easier to manage. I think I'll just knock this out of play while I can. I'll still take 4 here, but... Not drawing any lands here towards activating Pestilence more, and also not drawing creatures to play is pretty awkward. I won't lie to you. Cast Down is a very strange set of draws to access here. Perfect, perfect. Okay. So they absolutely have a counterspell in hand. There's no way that this resolves, but we gotta try. We gotta make things happen. This is at least advancing the game state a little bit. And I mean, if this does resolve, we're in incredible shape, but... I think we just got to shove on it. There also was some thought on my the last end of turn there to try and cast down both Spellstar Sprites and get in with Priest, but then we start losing Pestilence if they have any removal spell in their deck. I don't think that's great. And we just trying not to block and make that trade with Ninja. I think that block just takes a lot of tension off the board where we're not getting ninja'd right now. So I think I like that overall, but I think it's more just a function of these cast downs being really bad draws, where we're kind of in a weird game state where we want creatures to remain in play. Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Snap up Core Skyfisher, but I don't think we cast it just yet. I don't believe so. I think we want to hold on to it until we can play it next turn and have it enter play and not be at risk of getting Spellstutter sprited. I think having some caution with that will benefit us. Okay, no removal spell on the end step there is curious. That's a really interesting draw. It's a really interesting draw. But I still think I want to start my turn with this. This Fumes opens the door for us to remove all of their creatures and try to steal the Monarchy from them. but it does put us at risk that if they have 2 removal spells in hand, then they can retain the Monarchy and Pestilence goes away, and that's very bad. So I think if they put another Sprite on the stack here, I'm just going to Suffocating Fumes. And I will lose to Dispel here. But I think this is worth casting and keeping Priest of the Ancient Lore around. That's the difference between fuming and casting Pestilence. And then we have Cast Down, I guess, to hold over any other issues. This is really exciting, though. This is quite a game. They've demonstrated that their hand is not the best, so there's a chance that they've got too many lands or something, or creatures that they don't want to run out. Awesome. Okay. Oh, wow. So now we're going to attack with our 2 creatures here. They could still easily have 3 removal spells, kill all of our creatures, Pestilence goes away. But we're in a really good spot. It's a strange time to Echoing Truth, I'll say that much. Set up this Augur with the Fairy Seer. Okay, just hitting a Ponder's fine, though. Okay, so I think on their end step I'm going to try to flash in Omen of the Dead, and I have the Pestilence activation to play around Spellstutter Sprite. If they have hard counterspell, I'm okay with that. We've got plenty of things that card's good against, so I don't mind it eating the Omen of the Dead. I think is a fine exchange for us. So let me let this draw resolve, put Omen of the Dead into play. Access Core Skyfisher. I don't think I want to kill this Augur, but I definitely want to kill Fairy Seer to try to steal the Monarchy this turn, so I will activate once for mana efficiency. So now these cast downs are going to become relevant. Okay, great. They cannot have 2 Spellstutters, so I'm fine to play Core Skyfisher. Okay, and we win that game. And our opponent's in the red. So it's going to be... Let's think about how that informs our sideboarding. So I would say that these 5 cards are not great, but do become better when clock is an issue. But our deck is also just naturally good at slowing things down anyway. So maybe that's not really
necessarily true either. Priest of Ancient Lore seems pretty poor as we get to this condensed game, but then boarding out white creatures for Prismatic Strand seems like not really functional either. I think I'm gonna leave it as is. Spare Supplies is like the most dirtily card, but it's so broken. It's so good. This hand's awesome. Get to put them on the test on turn 2 circle. That's great. And then we just have other powerful options in the meanwhile. So Augur or Bolas is going to be their best draw here. If they leave up 2 mana and we get to circle, then we're in great shape. Eating a counter spell or doing something. Brainstorm's awesome for us. Okay. So probably Island Fairy Seer. And then this starts to make our Suffocating Fumes pretty good. This is just a nice slow start from their first 2 turns that gives us pretty great advantage. So with the circle in play now, one thing we do want to be more reserved about is saving this Journey to Nowhere for a Crimson Fleet Commodore. Like maybe if they play Stormbound Geist, I counter it, but or try to journey it, but everything else is not really an issue. Gonna spare supplies on the main phase here, try to hit another land drop. Or is Priest better? I think Priest is better. Especially since they don't have Counterspell up right now. If they just slam Commodore, we get to journey it and be pretty safe for a long time, settle in for a long game that their clock is not equipped to play. So fine, Ninja. So I'd still like for this trade to happen because I am mana screwed right now. It would be nice to not have to be porting myself to deal with this Ninja of the Deep Powers. Obviously, I have a removal, it breaks it up, but I think forcing that interaction from them is going to be good for us here. Likely have a removal spell that they found with Augur here, but no, I guess not. We do have the land drop, but I think we still want to be digging for the following turn to access more mana. So per discussion earlier, will not activate Circle of Protection Blue for Augur or Bolas if they have a ninjutsu line available to them. Straight is fine. They slam the Commodore again, we just get to go buck wild. with by Buck Wild, I mean we get to cast a Journey to Nowhere to stop it. Cast Down's a great draw here. We're insulated from Spellstutter Sprite if they want to counter it here. Just keep throwing some junk on the stack. Scoured Baron's so good. And I think we're just pretty well suited to win this game now. I think they're just too far behind on clock to really come back. So I'm going to throw the Journey out there. Hit this. It's probably the best target it's got going for it right now. We'll spare supplies, try to hit another land drop. I guess the spare supplies were pretty loose there. If they actually had the Sprite, that was bad, but that's okay. I think with these too many small creatures, they're just going to struggle to deal 20 damage in an appropriate time frame. Again, being patient with Circle for Ninja the Deep Hours. Scred, that's okay by me. I think we still just keep casting cards from hand. Activating the spare supplies to hit a land drop would be nice, but we're just eating counter spells here. And we've got so many things in our hand that demand it. And at some point we can just Pestilence or just spew off a lot of these small removal spells and be able to get there. But so I'm dead to Double Bolt here. How do I not be dead to Double Bolt? I think I want to put in a Journey to Nowhere, and then in their upkeep I think I want to cast Suffocating Fumes. And that should give me enough time to get to the rest of my board here. But I still might lose this game, honestly. Yeah, I'm just dead to Double Bolt. So I'm going to Journey to this. If I cast down plus Circle of Protection, I think that's worse than just circling twice. Okay. Didn't end up mattering, but it's not clear if I was going to win from there. We just missed on too many land drops for too long to really utilize the circle of protection. Yeah, I don't know. That's a interesting one to think about. So what were we drawing next? Okay, Magic Online doesn't want to tell me. That's all right. Well, good games. We are 3-0. See you for the next round. Round number 4 is up. We're playing versus Venom 1. I don't know anything about this user, so going in pretty much in the blind here. And is unfortunately unkeepable. And this hand's great. Don't love bottoming lands with how mana hungry our deck is, but I think we can safely put one of those swamps back. Alright. Playing versus Burn. That's always great. Core Skyfish is a great pickup. I think I played Plains here because if I draw Thraben Inspector, there's a reasonable chance I cast Inspector and play the Basilica. They're at 3 cards in hand, so I don't believe I can die here, so I think this is a good opportunity to do that, and we are rewarded with just that draw step. So that's great. Good sequencing. Now our turn is just killing Thermo Alchemist. Notably, Journey to Nowhere performing where Chainer's Edict would not. And now we're just in great position to take over this game. No cards in hand means this Lone Missionary is guaranteed. And if we can get the Lone Missionary to block Voldaren Epicure, that's going to be another excellent exchange for us. Curse of the Pierced Heart is kind of necessary for them to stay in this game. We'll just crack our Clue token here. Oh, curious if they attack here. No, okay. Awesome. Get to redraw that with Custody Squire. Great. Okay. Game 1. That's the harder one by far because we have these pestilences that are just absolutely awful. You get to take all of these fumes out. 4 prismatic strands come in. I guess let me do my sideboarding a little bit more cleanly here. Definitely want these 4 strands coming in. I don't believe we need any guardians. They're just very slow. Some interest. I guess Oblivion Ring helps cover Curse of the Pierced Heart, which is what I'd be looking to leave no trace. So maybe I just do this. Yeah, I think this is reasonable. Castigate's not amazing in this matchup, but it will certainly play, and I think it's a bit better than Suffocating Fumes.
This one's a bit awkward, but I think because they mulligan to 6, they really need to have a Thermal Alchemist to pop off with their hand, and we're going to be able to answer that with this hand, so I don't want to mulligan too aggressively there. Ash Barrens is a great draw, so earlier I talked about how Evolving Wilds would have been better. Here's a scenario where Ash Barrens is going to be significantly better by letting us Journey to Nowhere a creature this turn if they so choose. But we'll just play Gain Land, get the Inspector going. Chain Lightning the Thraben Inspector. Oh my. That's bold. That is bold. Happily play another one here. Bajukabog, not relevant since it doesn't appear that they're on Gitu Lava Runner. And we get to experience the exciting variety of Ash Barrens where it doesn't always just get Swamp. We can actually get basic plains, and we actually want to do that right now. And as good an opportunity as Castigate is going to have for the rest of this game. Curse of the Pierce Tart is precisely what we want to hit out of that. This hand is very weak to that. And Crossroads is just another great draw to top it all off. So I will hold up Prismatic Strands here just to counter any burn spell in particular. That's good enough for me. We're just looking to exchange resources, not any one spell that we have to have in particular. Or exchange it with. Alright. And that is a quick 2-0 versus Burn. We're 4-0. We'll see you for the 5th and final round. And in the 5th round, we are versus Top Grinder. I do not know what they play in particular. I wish to say Burn comes to mind, but this is just a great bread and butter hand for this deck. Okay, Volatile Fjord, awesome. Great start for us. And hopefully this Lone Missionary will have a window to be relevant, to be a spell that they care about. Looks like it might. Guess we're going to force the issue on this for a while. Going to pretty aggressively cast down an Augur of Bolas anyway, but having all of these Lone Missionaries certainly makes it even more appealing to do so. And into open red mana, I don't really want to play this Core Skyfisher and bounce something, so I will just continue deploying these. That's perfectly fine by us. We now have a couple 2-power creatures in play, so if they're ninjaing us, it's likely just going to be good for one card in particular, and not that problematic. Oh, and they're just getting in for some damage. I see. I think I just want to force the issue on this Pestilence because it's not actually that important to our game plan, how it's looking to shape out. So if we can just rob them of a counterspell right now, I think that'd be good. And if it resolves, then we're also in good position to race versus their creatures. I think I'll throw a Thraben Inspector on the table here.
And I will Pest in response here. Get a Kabir Crossroads in play. Of course, Skyfisher, pick up the Crossroads, gain a little extra life. So they'd have to have 2 removal spells to get rid of the Pestilence here, and then we have Omen of the Dead going with Core Skyfisher in the meanwhile. So I think we're in a pretty good spot now. So they do have a frantic inventory in the graveyard over there, so I think that's enough value that we're hoping to get out of this Bajuka Bog. Or I guess, can also just Omen of the Dead here with Pestilence backup. And if they don't have Sprite or Counterspell here. Okay. That's fine. Anytime we just get a Counterspell out of the hand and we're not like that far behind on board, it's just a tremendously positive exchange for us. We've got 2 clue tokens on board basically, so even if they kill Inspector and Pestilence here, we are in good shape. So our main concern here is going to be Crimson Fleet Commodore. And this is going to be our way to beat it. So if they have Counterspell into Crimson Fleet Commodore, we're in trouble. Fortunately, there's not really a way for me to use a removal spell here that doesn't play into this Echoing Truth, drawing them another card. So I think we're just going to hold off on it for now. And then we do want to get this Bajuka Bog in play in case they access another frantic inventory. So we're definitely behind right now, but I'm guessing they have a ninja in hand. So we get to cast down the ninja here. They can bounce it if they want, but then this opens the window for Journey to Nowhere to be good. And I think that's going to be really important. No spell there is definitely backbreaking, but we'll just keep doing what we can. I think we play the Crossroads because if we draw a bounce land, that's potentially the most high impact land we can redraw. Yeah, we're just dead now. Unfortunate. We had a close shot this game, but just gonna fall behind to this ninja now because they've got 3 counterspells left in their deck. Or 2. 2 counterspells, 2 sprites. Augur of Bolas, I believe, is the other card, right? Or no, that I journeyed that. That's how that card works. Well, I'll throw it down. They've got Sprite number 3 in your top 29 cards with like 2 cantrips cast. I guess they've done the 4 preordains, but yeah, that's pretty good. No second ninja is honestly great because they've had, yeah, look at the top half of their deck and beyond, and they've only gotten the 1. So this is the moment of truth here. We have drawn what we need to draw.
And it does not matter. Still got a couple more looks at it. But now we're reaching the part where they're going to trivially access the 4th Spellstutter Sprite in their deck, and we can't beat that. Well, this can help a little bit, but it's unlikely to survive. Okay. Yeah, so if they have another ninja here, we're just straight up out of outs. And if they access the 4th counterspell, we're out of luck as well. I don't believe that does it, but we'll give it a shot. There's no information being given away here. Now they're just going to bolt me out. Okay. Well, they don't make decks in Magic the Gathering that can beat these draws, so that's okay. So sideboarding. So we got these Circle of Protection blues that we want, and 2 Strands and the other Guardian. And I want to get away from Thraben Inspector entirely, and I suppose this... Oh, I think I trimmed a Journey to Nowhere earlier, right? Because it doesn't seem like Stormbound Geist is that popular right at the moment, so I think this card's value goes way down without that. And I think we're good to go. Hand is excellent. There's a little bit of a tension here with how to play this bounce land, but I guess that gets resolved by saying that I just wish to journey this Fairy Seer immediately. I think because we know they have the counter spell, we can't wait on this Guardian. I think we just need to shove a little bit here. They can trip and... Oh, okay. Get another island. I think Pestilence is actually the worst card here, so I'm just going to slam this one here. That eats the counterspell, that's great. And we can go for Guardian this coming turn. I don't think it's worth it to pick up Bog with the Basilica. I think we're just going to get another, probably the Swamp, back to hand. Can also just go for another Priest here. Yeah, I kind of like that. It seems to me like they have another counterspell, and I'd rather have them use it on the Priest. I think now we just start slamming Guardians. And counterspell. Just try to keep the board clear here. I think I want to try to bait out a Sprite if they have it, although if they have Sprite Dispel, this is a lot worse. Maybe I just take this and say, yeah, I shouldn't Suffocating Fumes here. I think this is probably the right play, but now I just resolve Guardian and say, this is what the game is about. You have 10 turns to figure this out. That's probably better. Okay, so now they get to access red mana. Maybe represent a Thraben Inspector here, but this is just a counter or bust scenario. I don't actually know what I want here. Okay, sure. Sure. I don't think we're blocking with Priest of Ancient Lore at this time. Because they do have red mana and haven't used a removal spell yet, so it's not unlikely for them to be able to blow us out that way. Yep, okay. Alright, well now I will attack and try to Suffocating Fumes, and if that doesn't work, I cast Pestilence. Totally fine. Okay, and so now our biggest concern is getting bolted out. So we're at 15, going down to 12 from the Pestilence activations. We're in okay shape. I think with 2 Frantic Inventory in the graveyard, that card's probably more important to shut off with Bog than than the extra life from Scoured Barrens. I'm going to do this now. And then move to my end step, and then my end step I'll activate twice again for this Augur. They have Echoing Truth for Journey to Nowhere. Things get more complicated. For real? Okay. Sure. Alright, so now we're losing Pestilence. They've used 2 Spellstutter Sprites. I think we got to be a little patient with Omen of the Dead here, but so this is challenging.
want Guardian. Okay, they've conceded, but I want to think about this a little bit. I think because of the Scred in hand, I probably just get Guardian back with this. I draw a card and see. Okay, so then I would go Guardian plus Lone Missionary on that turn. And that's definitely enough time to raise because they go to 8 and then 2 attacks of 4 from Guardian. Lone Missionary buying some time. That's most likely enough to get there. Okay. So Journey was looking really bad with Curfew in addition to the Echoing Truth that we saw. So I think seeing no Stormbound Geist and the previous opponent having no Stormbound Geist either, maybe it's just not a card that's in this week's challenge deck lists or whatever that we need to worry about. So then I'm interested in Strands, not O-Ring for the reason just mentioned. Strands or Castigate or Thraben Inspector. And probably Castigate is the least worrisome here. Yeah, let's try that. I don't like playing that in this matchup, but if it's... I think it might just be what we got to do here. So it's definitely a keep. But what do we put away? I think it's either Creature or the second Basilica. And honestly, I think I just want to put away Skyfisher because that's not at its best in this match. It's really, really good in this matchup, but if they just like Scred it, we're behind a lot on mana because we have such an expensive creature to pick up with it, so I think I just want to get rid of it for now. Although, that might be wrong, but I don't think so. It's going to be a tough game for turn 2 Ninja. Okay, no turn 2 Ninja. That's great. That's great. Priest or Guardian's a great pickup as well. Okay. I will attempt to Bajuka Bog, or cast down anything that I'm allowed to. They just like tap out for Augur, it's dead. Yes, okay. No cards. Excellent. Missed the land drop. Priest actually working pretty well with our mana here. And we're just gonna ask for the counterspell again and again. Okay, Scred. Don't care about that. Guardian's in play. We get to put another one in play next turn. Tormod's Crypt? Tormod's Crypt. Wow. Alright. Okay, so I'm going to bait with Lone Missionary here. I don't care about this, but maybe if they feel the need to counterspell it, they can. Nice. Okay, 2 Guardians are in. I'm feeling good about this game. And we did it. That's a trophy. So I've recorded 3 videos in a row now that I've trophied. I want to be clear. I am posting everything that I record. There's no like behind the curtain like, oh, I'm just throwing out these leagues that I'm not trophying with. This is just an absurd run on camera for these games. That was wild. That was awesome. Absolutely awesome. Just a really great showing for the deck. We played, again, 5 good matchups. So I feel like there's certainly, absolutely, some variance within that is in our favor, but that's still, that's kind of unbelievable. That's absolutely unbelievable to me that it's just worked out that well. And I think we did highlight some of the strengths of this build. Priest of Ancient Lore really did a lot of work. We played versus Ninja of the Deep Hours 3 times, and this card and Lone Missionary blocked it and traded with it in situations where it was pretty important to trade and not just leave the threat of it on the battlefield like Arishan Cleric would. The 4 life from Lone Missionary mattered a lot in a lot of those matchups where we were pretty low on life towards the end of the game. The 4th Guardian in the sideboard felt like a great one to sideboard into when we had these removal spells like Journey to Nowhere that were not really strong. These Castigates were not really used this league. Omen of the Dead continues just to thrash the mid-range matchups. It does suffer a lot in other areas, but it also convinces our opponent to bring in Tormod's Crypt when Omen of the Dead, Custody Squire, and Prismatic Strands are our only graveyard interaction in this build. And the latter two are only half graveyard cards. Like Strands, front half is still worth a card. Custody Squire's 3/3 flyer for 5 is like not an exciting card, but I played limited decks with that, and sometimes Pestilence is just a glorified limited deck. So, not sometimes, that's a lot of the time. So the 4 strands in the sideboard have felt like a reasonable way to configure. These fumes have been fine in the main deck. Again, hard to tell when they're bad. Oblivion Ring in the sideboard definitely can be improved. There's got to be a better option there, but I'm not seeing it right now, and I think for Affinity, I like that as an option. And yeah, so 3rd video in a row, a second with Pest, 5-0. Blue-black fairies, Boros Bully, blue-red fairies, burn, blue-red fairies. Just some of the top decks of the format, and we're just out here crushing them. So thank you so much for watching this whole video with me. Hope it was enjoyable to you. I feel better about this one. The last video was a trophy, but those decks, or the way those matches played out, we got a lot luckier than our opponents did. And luck was certainly a component in these matches, but you also just get to see the raw grinding power of Pestilence that just chews these fairies decks alive and just really drive home how lopsided those matchups are in our favor. So really happy to get to showcase that side of the deck and not just the casting a removal spell and winning the game. That some of those other matches were not quite as good. There's a lot of great back and forth in these as well, and hopefully some good lessons in sequencing as well, trying to optimize that, as well as being critical of the deck along the way to see where are places that we can improve it for the future. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.